Note the concern expressed by several special rapporteurs earlier this year about new impediments to the right of freedom of opinion and expression, the right of peaceful assembly, and the right of freedom of association. We support their calls on Cambodian authorities to ensure a safe and enabling environment for human rights defenders and civil society, which play a critical role in holding the government to account and bringing benefits of human rights to the whole of Cambodian society. We are deeply concerned about the current escalation of political tensions in Cambodia, which threatens legitimate activities by opposition parties and human rights NGOs. We lament the recent murder of commentator and analyst Kem Lay and note the chilling effect this crime has had upon civil society and independent voices in Cambodia. We call for a full and transparent investigation into Mr. Lay's death. More broadly, we call on all relevant stakeholders to work towards de-escalating the tensions and building trust and confidence. We also urge the government to make their utmost efforts to create a political environment in which opposition parties and civil society can all function freely.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising here in strong support for House Resolution 728, supporting human rights and democracy and the rule of law in Cambodia. We've all seen the consequences of land grabbing and the destruction of human liberty in that country. I want to thank my colleague, Mr. Lowenthal, for introducing this resolution. I want to thank him for his advocacy for the people of Cambodia. And, Mr. Speaker, since Cambodia held its deeply flawed elections in 2013, we have seen significant attacks on Cambodians peacefully opposing their government. Hun Sen's thuggish regime continues to crack down on the political opposition and on activists, and they continue to arrest and beat those who point out violations of freedom of speech, violations, frankly, of a stolen election. As noted in this resolution, Freedom House's most recent report card rated Cambodia as not free, noting restrictions on and the harassment of the government's political opposition. And that's putting it mildly. Last year, opposition lawmaker and American citizen Noy John Ron was severely and brutally attacked by plainclothes bodyguards who repeatedly kicked and stomped him. He was hospitalized for months. We've all seen the pictures of opposition figures who have been beaten and stomped and put in the hospital there. Several months later, Kem Lay, a popular Cambodian political commentator, was murdered in broad daylight for his outspoken protests of the regime. So much for freedom of speech in Cambodia. And then just last week, Hun Sen took yet another step to consolidate his grip on power, to make it impossible for people to run against him. He sentenced the de facto leader of the Cambodian National Rescue Party, Kem Sokha, to 5 months in prison on the spurious charge of refusing to appear for questioning in a politically motivated case that was brought against him. Although his sentence is short, the repercussions are dire, as convicted criminals are prohibited from holding office. And that, again, was what this was about. Intimidation and trying to force a system where the opposition party leader, already in exile, would then be in a position where they couldn't run somebody against Hun Sen. Mr. Speaker, these attacks on the opposition must stop. This systemic persecution of the government's opposition completely undermines the legitimacy of upcoming local elections, as well as the country's 2018 national elections. Without the full and free participation of the CNRP, future elections will be deeply flawed and cannot be accepted. Hun Sen's continued attack on his political opponents is something we cannot accept. And for the sake of the Cambodian people, I urge my colleagues to adopt this resolution. I reserve the balance of my time.